All right, let's go ahead and go over this. For problem number 1, who can raise their hand and remind us what kind of angle relationship is this? Is this complementary, supplementary, or vertical? Abdullah? Supplementary. Supplementary meaning that they are going to form a straight line, and that if we were to go ahead and add them together, it'll equal how many degrees? If we add these two angles together, so if I take 3x and I add it with the 54, how many degrees is that supposed to equal, Zarima? 180. Okay, so these are supplementary angles. You need to know your relationships. These are supplementary angles. That means that when we add them together, it's going to be equal to 180 degrees. So if you need to put down that supplementary equals 180 total, then that's what you need to make sure you understand. All right, now we've got this into a two-step equation. So remember, the first thing that we always want to do when it's a two-step equation, we want to identify the constant. What value up here is my constant? Which value is my constant, Kyle?
54.
54. It is a positive 54, so we're going to put a box around the positive 54. So that tells me to do the opposite of positive 54 or plus 54. What is the inverse or the opposite going to be there, Azariah? Subtraction. So instead of adding 54, we're going to subtract 54 from both sides. Those 54s can then be canceled out, and we are now left with 3x on the left side, and then 180 minus 54 is 126 on the right side. From here, what do we then do, Marianne? What are we going to do to solve 3x equals 126? What do I have to do to get x by itself? All right, Marianne, let me ask you something different. Huh? Well, what operation is it when they're side by side right now? What is this? Instead of me just saying 3x, I could say it's 3 blank x. Like, what operation is happening between the 3 and the x? Do we see a plus sign in between them? Do we see a minus sign in between them? No. There's no plus sign between them. There's no minus sign between them. What is it, guys, when they're side by side? What operation is it? Multiplication. So get used to it. When you guys see 3x, get used to it in your mind just saying 3 times x. Because in your mind, if you know it says 3 times x, then when we talk about the opposite, what is the opposite of times? Divide, division, right? So I know that I really am going to go ahead and divide by 3. I want to get x by itself. In order to get x by itself, I have to get rid of whatever is paired up with it. Okay, I want to get x isolated. So divide by 3 here and divide by 3 on the right side. So I'm going to do 126 divided by 3. And that's going to give me x is equal to 42. So it's a supplementary relationship, x is equal to 42. What is the relationship for problem 2? Say it. Somebody was saying it. Thank you, Jada. Complementary. Problem number 2 is a complementary angle set because we have an L shape that is being able to be formed by the combination of these two angles. So complementary relationships are going to add up to how many degrees? 90. Okay, so complementary is going to be equal to 90 degrees. Complementary is going to come out to 90 degrees. So that means if I take 2x and I add it with 40, that's going to be equal to 90. Okay, again, we follow the exact same concept. We identify the constant first. Tiana, what's the constant? 40. So we have that plus 40 That's my constant. So what is the inverse of plus 40, Angel? What's the inverse of adding 40? Subtracting 40. Please close your computers. You don't need them open right now. So we're going to subtract 40 from both sides. We're going to subtract the 40 from both sides of the equation. That leaves us with 2x is now equal to 50. What is our last step? How do we simplify this one now, Kyle?
50 divided by 2.
Good. We're going to divide both sides by 2, and that's going to get x isolated, and we'll get x is equal to 25. X is going to be equal to 25 here. All right, for this last one, number 3, what relationship is that when we have intersecting lines like this? Vertical. When they are intersecting lines and they are directly across from each other, those are called vertical angles. And remember, vertical angles are equal. They are congruent. They are equal in their measurements. So that means 11y minus 36 is going to be equal to 63. 11y minus the 36 is going to be equal to the 63. Okay, and real quickly because we need to go to lunch. Our inverse, we're going to identify the constant. The constant in this case is a minus 36. So what is the opposite of subtraction? Say it louder, guys. Adding. You guys should know this by now. When I say opposite of subtraction, you need to know it's addition. So we're going to add 36 to both sides. Those 36s are going to cancel out. You're then going to be left with 11y is now equal, sorry, let me move this down, is now equal to 99. What's our last step here? 11 times y, what is the last step that we need to do? Divide. We're going to divide both sides by 11. Divide both sides by 11. Those 11s will cancel out. The 11s will cancel out, and we have y is equal to 9. Okay, you need to know those angle relationships and how to set up the equations, whether it's a one-step or a two-step equation that needs to be set up. Let's go ahead and line up for lunch. Go on to the back, and we're going to be starting multi-step equations. So for multi-step equations, guys, it's where you have to first simplify. So we're kind of taking what we did with the first part of our unit with 2a, where we simplified expressions down as far as we could, and then we can solve. So I've broken it down based off of the different steps. Now, if you turn around and look at the back board, in the center, it says solving equations. I've got a poster back there that also breaks down how to solve a multi-step variables on both sides equation. You guys do not need to know variables on both sides. If we have time, then we'll discuss what to do when you've got a variable on the left side and on the right side. But for right now, if you were to look at that board, the only steps you would have to focus on are steps 1, 2, 4, and 5. So I broke step 2 up into 2 parts. So this is step 1. This technically is step 2. I should have just labeled it 2A and 2B. This would be step 4, and this would be step 5. Step 3 really is what to do when you've got variables on both sides. But like I said, you're not going to know how to do those yet. We'll get into that if time permits. But what you do need to understand is if you've got something that's not a two-step equation, it's got multiple parts to it, what do you do? So for these first couple of sections right here, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and just identify these. These first 3 sections are basically you just simplifying. These first 3 steps that we've got here is basically us simplifying expressions down And then step 4 and 5 is you actively solving. Step 4 and 5 is where you're solving. Steps 1, 2, and 3 is where you're simplifying your expressions. So for the very first step, step 1, you need to distribute if possible. So looking up at our problem, we've got 9x minus 4 times the quantity of 3x minus 6 is equal to negative 3 plus 18. The first thing I want to do is distribute. And in this case, I do have a distributive property problem. Marianne, I need you to take the hood off, please. We do have a distributive property. Now notice it says distribute if possible. That means you won't always have distribution. Sometimes it might just be simplifying by combining like terms. Okay, but in this case we do have something that needs to be distributed. We need to distribute this minus 4. This negative 4 is going to get multiplied to the 3x, and it's going to get multiplied to this minus 6. So we're doing negative 4 times 3x, and we're doing negative 4 times negative 6. Okay, so that means nothing happened to that 9x. The 9x stays just as it is. The 9x stays just exactly as it is. Then we do negative 4 times 3x, which is negative 12x. Then we do negative 4 times negative 6, which comes out to a positive 24. And then we bring everything else down. We bring down this equal sign. We bring down this negative 3. We bring down this positive 18 or plus 18. That's the first step to simplifying our expressions. Now, when we look at step 2, we're going to focus on combining any like terms that we can on the left side of the equation. So we're just going to focus on the left side of the equation first. So I've got 9x minus the 12x plus 24 is equal to negative 3 plus 18. That's what I got when I did my distribution. I have some variable terms that are considered to be like terms. I've got a 9x and a minus 12x. Those are like terms. What do I get when I do 9x minus 12x? What is 9 minus 12? Negative 3x. So we get negative 3x here. Now, I don't have a like term with this positive 24 on the same side of the equal sign. Remember, we're only focusing on the left side of the equal sign. So that positive 24 just gets written as a positive 24 or plus 24. We're not doing anything to the right side yet, so it stays negative 3 plus 18 on the right side. We only focused on simplifying what we could on the left. So this should look familiar. That should look familiar to you because that's what we did for Unit 2A. Okay, step 3. Step 3 is having us simplify or combine like terms as well, but now we're going to combine the like terms that are on the right side. So we ignore the left side for the time being. The left side was just negative 3x plus 24. And we focus on the right side. We focus on the negative 3 plus 18. Can I combine negative 3 and 18 together? Yeah. Those are like terms. Those are actually like terms. They are both numbers. They are both constants. So what is negative 3 plus 18? 15. Good. Positive 15. So we now have negative 3x plus 24 is equal to 15. This should look familiar at this point. Everything that you did was just to simplify it down so that you would now have a two-step equation. So this is the part, this concept right here, this is when we actually start to solve. When we get to step 4 and step 5, that's when we focus on actually solving our equations. So for step 4 wants us to identify the constant, just like we've been doing. Identify the constant, and we're either going to add it or subtract it from both sides. So we have negative 3x plus 24 is equal to 15. What number up here is my constant?
24.
24. And am I going to subtract it or add it to both sides?
Yeah.
Subtract. So we're going to subtract 24 from both sides. Those 24s will cancel out, and we're now going to be left with a negative 3x equals a negative 9. Then we get to the last one. Our last step, step 5, we're going to multiply or divide on both sides to get the variable isolated. So you have to decide, is it multiplication that you use to solve or division that you would use to solve? So remember, this says negative 3 times x. This says negative 3 times x. So how are we going to solve? What's the opposite? Division. Instead of multiplying with the negative 3, we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. And that'll give us x equaling a positive 3. Okay? So again, you distribute if possible. Then you combine terms on the left side if possible. Combine like terms on the right side if possible. And then you start solving. Identify a constant if you've got one, and you'll add or subtract it to the other side. And then you either finish it off with multiplication or with division. So let's take a look at a couple of practice problems together. For problem number 1, do we have any distributive property?
No.
No. There is no distributive property. There's nothing that we can distribute by. What's wrong? Hurry up. We do not have any distributive property here. So now let's look at step 2. Step 2 says combine like terms on the left side. So I'm going to cover up my right side for right now. And I'm just going to focus on this left side. The left side says 4n minus 2n. Do I have any like terms here?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got like terms. 4n and 2n are like terms. So I can actually do that. I can combine these like terms. I can focus on doing 4n minus 2n. What is 4n minus 2n going to give us? 2n. 4n minus 2n is just going to give us 2n. Now I'm going to look at the right side. Is there anything I can do to simplify the right side?
No.
No. 4 is just a 4. Nothing we can do. So the right side is going to stay a 4. That's as simplified as it's going to get. Do I have a constant? Step 4 says to identify a constant. Do I have a constant here?
No.
Nope, no constant. So there's no addition or subtraction that's going to happen. So now we move to step 5. Am I going to multiply or divide both sides by the 2? Divide. We're going to divide both sides by 2. And what will n equal? What's 4 divided by 2? 2. So n is going to be equal to 2. Okay, that's a really simple one. Still considered to be multi-step because you have to simplify before you can solve. Let's take a look at number 2. For problem number 2, because you've got the variables on the right side, I strongly recommend to you guys that you rewrite it. It makes it a lot simpler to you. I feel like some of you get confused when you don't have the variable on the left side. So I would strongly advise that the first thing that you should do is to go ahead and rewrite it. Take the right side and put it on the left. So do 2 plus 5v plus 2v, and then it equals negative 12. Just rewrite it. Flip-flop the sides. That's all. Okay, now let's go through our steps. Step 1 is to look for distributive property. Do we have anything we can distribute?
No.
Nope. There's no distributive property because we don't have any parentheses involved. Step 2, combine anything you can on the left side. Is there anything that I can combine together on this left side? Daniel, what can I combine? 5v and 2v. The 5v, which is a positive, and the 2v, which is a positive. I can combine those together. What is 5v plus 2v? 7v. Positive 7v. So notice I put a plus sign in front of it. Okay, that's the only thing I can simplify on that side. So I'm going to bring this 2 down. That can't be simplified. It's just going to come straight down in the problem. So we have 2 plus 7v. All right, step 3, focus on the right side. Can I simplify anything on the right side? No. So that negative 12 is just going to come straight down. All right. From here, we now need to go on to step 4. Step 4 says to identify a constant and then add or subtract it. Which number up here is the constant, the 2 or the 7? 2. The 2 is my constant. Now the 2 is a positive, so I'm going to put a little imaginary plus sign in front of it. So what's the opposite going to be here? Negative, right? Subtract. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Subtracting 2 from both sides. These 2's are going to cancel out. I'm left with a positive 7v is now equal to negative 14. So that says 7 times v equals negative 14. 7 times v equals negative 14. What are we going to do now? Divide. We're going to divide both sides by 7. So that will give us v is equal to negative 2. V is going to be equal to negative 2. Go ahead and take a moment to get that copy down, then we'll go over to the last page. Okay, so you're going to do 3, 4, 5, and 7 on your own, but let's do problem 6 together first. Only reason I want to do that is because I want to show you one with distributive property again. So for problem number 6, this does have distributive property. Remember that first step is to distribute. So we're going to take this negative 3 and we're going to multiply it to the 4x, and we're going to multiply it to that negative 8. So we're going to do negative 3 times 4x and negative 3 times negative 8. Negative 3 times 4x is going to come out to a negative 12x, and negative 3 times negative 8 is going to come out to a positive 24. And all of this is set equal to negative 36. Okay, so we did step 1, distributive. Step 2 is to look at the left side and see if we can combine any like terms. Can we combine any like terms on the left side? No, we've got an x variable and we've got a number. Okay, step 3, cover this up and look at the right side. Can I simplify the right side at all? No. So that's as simplified as it's going to get it. So now we move to step 4, which is to start solving. Identify the constant. What number up here is my constant? Positive 24. Positive 24 is my constant. So we're going to subtract 24 from both sides. We're going to subtract 24 from both sides. Those are going to cancel out on the left. That's going to leave us with a negative 12x is now equal to a negative 60. So remember, negative 12x means negative 12 times x. Negative 12 times x is equal to negative 60. Eileen, what's the opposite operation that we need to do here then? Huh? Not addition. Remember, this is negative 12 times x. So what's the opposite of times? Divide. So that's a common mistake. People see the negative and they automatically think that they need to add. But when they're side by side, this doesn't say that you're doing x minus 12. This says you're doing negative 12 times x. So you have to divide instead of adding or subtracting. You want to do the opposite, which is division in this case. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 12. Okay, those negative 12s are going to cancel out, and x is going to be left by itself. Negative 60 divided by negative 12 is going to come out to a positive 5. Okay, I want you guys to try problems 3, 4, 5, and 7 on your own. go ahead and go over the answers so that way you have time to work on your assignment. For problem number 3, the first thing that I would recommend doing is rewriting it. Making sure that you put the x plus 3 minus 5x on the left side of the equal sign and then the 3 on the right side. Then I can combine like terms. I have x minus 5x, which comes out to a negative 4x. So I have negative 4x plus 3 is equal to 3. When I subtract 3 from both sides, I get 0. So I now have negative 4 times x equals 0. Well, if I divide by negative 4, anytime you do 0 divided by a number, you get 0. So x is going to be equal to 0 in this case for problem number 3. Number 4 is a real simple one too. When you combine like terms, 3 minus 3 comes out to 0. So you're now left with x plus 0 is equal to negative 6. Well, anytime you do a value plus 0, it's just that value. So you have x already by itself. So x is equal to negative 6. Very, very simple one. Number 5, I would recommend rewriting it so that you have the right side on the left and the left side on the right. So that means negative 3 times the quantity of x plus 2 is equal to 6. I would distribute the negative 3 first. Do negative 3 times x, which gives you negative 3x. And then negative 3 times 2, which is going to give you a negative 6. You then identify that negative 6 is your constant, so you should add 6 to both sides. That gets rid of the constant, and you're left with negative 3x is equal to 12. You would then divide both sides by negative 3 and get x is equal to negative 4. And then the last one, no need to rewrite. You just distribute 6 times negative x and 6 times negative 3. That's going to give you negative 6x minus 18 is equal to 24. Minus 18 is your constant, so you should add 18 to both sides. That gives you negative 6x is equal to 42. And then you would divide both sides by negative 6, get x is equal to negative 7. Okay, you have a Delta Math assignment. Go ahead and get onto the computer, log in, and complete the Delta Math. It's 10 questions on multi-step equations.